from leadership and personal growth to marriage, fatherhood, and balancing career and family. Join us as we explore insightful conversations and practical advice to help you thrive as a man after God's own heart.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Men After God podcast. It has been a week, 2 weeks, I think, since I've been on the podcast. I'm so thankful for Luke and Adrian taking care of things in my absence here. I've been behind the scenes of editing and putting things together and having conversations with these guys. And you've heard us mention over these last few episodes, especially, before we were talking about seasons, and then we got into our men's mental health series that we were working through, and love that, and look forward to some of those conversations continuing. Luke has made mention of not being able to schedule time to record with me on our schedules, because both of us have gotten really busy with things going on in life. And this past Sunday, our team got together and had a great meeting, great conversation, time of prayer, and just discussion over where Men After God is, where we're at in life, and kind of what we need to do right now that's best to serve you, to take care of our team, and to just continue on the direction God has us. And most importantly, and this is the hardest thing for me, at the pace God has us. And so tonight, I say tonight because I'm recording it tonight, but today when you listen, this conversation, we're going to talk about the prevention or noticing when you're entering a phase of what could become burnout. Now, I have had the unfortunate experience of experiencing what is a not cliche, but just a popular term, buzzword. That's the word. A buzzword nowadays of burnout in two different ways. In 2022, I experienced a physical burnout where I almost passed out of my house. I had to go to my doctor and get checked out and things, and I was just overloaded. I wrote about that in the book. I'm not going to cover it again right now. In 2023. What year is this? 2024, summer of last year, I experienced an emotional burnout. I had been dealing with some ministry heaviness, some relational issues, not with my wife, but with some people in my life, ministry stress and different things that was going on that really got me to the place where I was suffering from anxiety and depression in a way I never had before. I had to take a few weeks away from ministry and kind of reset. And I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned a lot about God, obviously, my friends, and I've learned a little bit of what to look for. And so some of you guys listening, you may be people that push and grind and go and get things done. And I think that's wonderful to an extent. However, I'm afraid some of you may find yourself in a situation like I have been before, and I don't want to end up in again. So today's conversation between Luke and I is going to be about preventing burnout, and how I'm taking some practical steps in my life right now to keep that from happening. Because as of this episode, I'm going to be taking a step back from the content creation at Men After God for a season. You're going to get to hear great voices like Luke and Adrian. We're going to get our publisher Daniel in here to share his story. And we're going to bring some other guys in for some amazing things to be happening. I'm not disappearing, but I am going to reduce my load, because God has opened doors for me to work at an amazing Christian school, teaching math and working with seniors. And I love what I'm doing there. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to provide for my family in this way. But between that and a few other moving pieces in my life, I'm not able to continue up the content creation schedule for Men After God. So I'm really glad Luke and Adrian are going to be stepping up for this. And I know some of you guys listening might be on the same path I'm on. And I wanted to do this publicly to give you permission to say no and take a step back from something, because it's okay.
Yeah, I think this is a really big deal, and I appreciate the vulnerability and also the transparency from Dustin. So just to clarify, he is stepping away from the recordings, and I'm sure that we'll hear his voice and probably hear a lot of things that I say that he told me to say, and I'll take credit for as needed. But to be honest, Dustin is not stepping away from Men After God. He's only stepping away from the recordings and the content creation. He's still going to be helping produce the podcast and get them out, stuff like that. So he'll still be very involved. And Dustin and I are very close friends, really outside. We've just spent an hour talking about hey, life updates, where we're at. So I don't think we're getting away from him. I just know that the ask was, hey, initially he was like, hey, I'm going to take 30 days. We said, hey, take 3 months, take the rest of the year, because a couple things are going to happen is, hey, we're gonna have a good conversation today on the wisdom of knowing when to step down, the wisdom of knowing when to say no, because there's times you need to say no, or there's times you need to say yes to the things that are the most important things. So we're going to talk about that, but also we are going to be vamping up some really cool things for the new year. I think this has allowed us to have a conversation of what's our mission, what's our purpose, and we have a lot of visionary things and things we'd like to do and things we wish we had time to do. And to be honest, both Dustin and I work full-time jobs, and most of you work a full-time job and have got a lot going on. So this isn't to say, well, we got more than you. No, we just, in the wisdom of advice from wise people, we know when to say no. But I want to talk about the emotional intelligence, which I know Dustin does not give himself any credit for, of being self-aware and saying, hey, I know when to, like the song says, I know when to hold them and I know when to fold them. I know when to just, hey, let's take a break. Let's not overdo it, because when you read the signs and say, hey, I'm about to burn out, I'm about to crash and burn, and that's not good for your family. It's not good for your relationships. And there's times God's going to put you on your knees or on your back. But if you are in a place where, like, hey, wisdom says I need to just step back and make sure I'm living in the priorities. And I love and respect the fact that Dustin said, hey, I made a commitment to this Christian school for the year to be an excellent teacher. And with that, I need to be very mindful of my time with my family, my priorities, what's required, what's going to give the greatest return, and what's going to be the most rewarding. And really, he's making that decision. Not that he doesn't love men after God, but he's like, hey, we can still do it. And I are in a stage of life where we really enjoy talking a lot, so it works out just fine. We'll be just fine. And I think
that stage has lasted a really long time.
Oh yeah, since I was born, like it's been 36 years. So I hope I get over it by the time I get to heaven. So, but what I'm gonna do today, I'm gonna ask a couple questions, because I really believe, based on this stage of Dustin's life, that there's a lot of wisdom that we can pick up from this point of, like, hey, you guys have heard the story on the after burnout. Like, somebody burns out, they finally recover, they finally get back to, like, oh man, it almost killed me. It was the worst. It was just bad. And by the way, some of you have experienced that and could speak to that. Well, today we're going to talk like, hey, what's it look like in the process? What does it feel like to, and I'm going to ask some real tough questions of Dustin. He's looking at our script, and I'm not even going to go off the script. I'll throw this out there. He told me, said, well, let's ask some questions. I've got some tough questions I'm going to ask here. And so I'd appreciate this. I'm going to ask Dustin to be extremely vulnerable and say, hey, what can he share from his heart that is going to speak to some of you that are in the stage of right now? You're either in burnout phase, you're coming out of burnout phase, or if you're not careful, you're about to fall into a burnout phase. And I promise it is not worth sacrificing everything that you have to sacrifice when you have no choice, if you can do some preventative maintenance, some self-care, some self-analysis, self-awareness. So I got a couple questions. Dustin, are you ready for this?
Man, I should have thought this over more. Yeah, no, absolutely, Luke.
Dustin, I have noticed in our podcast, if you didn't know this, Dustin is really good at asking me questions. I feel like he asked me these, and I love it. I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. But I'm just like a dog after a bone, right? Yeah. And then I'm like ready to transition back to Dustin. I'm like, I didn't even think about what I'm going to ask. It's like, Dustin, take it away. Like, that doesn't count. But today, we have got some questions rigged for you. Here we go. Sorry, I said the quiet part out loud. I want to say this. Hey, there's been a phase over the last several weeks, really last couple of months, where we kind of knew something was going on, just because both of us we're in a season. We were talking about seasons, which was great. When did you first notice that something was off in your pace and energy? Like, hey, and by the way, Dustin's health is fine, everything's good, but we're keeping him there, right? But when did you notice, like, hey, there's just a shifting?
So I've been at the school since July, and that was, let's see, what month are we in right now? September,
yeah.
We had, I think we had Pastor Aaron McBride, recording our Bible studies in July. And I knew I needed someone for August. And getting into the school, working through the material, getting classes ready, making sure tests, quizzes, homework, everything, just everything required to teach, right? Coming home, family, needed to record. And Luke, we were struggling. We were just constantly, all right, hey, when are we getting together this week? And oftentimes we
were juggling.
Yeah. And it was usually like, hey, night before, let's do it. And for anyone who knows me, I like to plan things out. I like to know how things are done. I like to have it done days in advance. And that's just how I operate. Doing it the night before is just an awful thing for me. Did it work? Absolutely. Did we produce great content? Sure.
Sorry,
right.
I mean, yes.
Humble brag. I think our stuff's amazing, but that's just me. And so what we but nonetheless, that created like, okay, now I'm juggling these things. And one thing, and here's the thing, Lucas, when I start rattling off, oh yeah, here's the things going on in my life, it can make people's head spin, and it makes my own head spin. Now, before I'm like, oh, I could do it all, but it was doing that. We were talking about selling our house. We were, and we're still in the process of that. Just with the phase of life that I'm in right now, God has taken care of us in so many ways. One of the ways He did that was allowing me to get more GI Bill funding. So I started taking college classes again. Got a doctorate. Why not take more? And so, but I started doing something I really into. Like I'm getting a project management certificate. I think it's just really cool to work through that. So I've learned the professional side of it. But I have that schoolwork to do on a weekly basis. So it was in July, probably like 3 weeks into the school, realizing like, okay, there's a lot happening right now, and I'm struggling to make it happen. And that's where I wanted to make pull myself up my bootstraps, make a plan, let's execute this, and we'll be okay. Well, then in August, when it started getting closer to the school year and training started. Okay, well, now I'm at the school for all week. We're in-service training, which if you're a teacher and you've ever done in-service training, there's a lot of valuable information. And I'm thankful for our administration giving us the type of training that they did. It was not just, hey, let's review this to review that. We had to go over a manual, but it was really valuable. But it's training. You're sitting and listening or engaging in training all day. And that has its own drain on you. And I work for an amazing ministry that does great stuff for their staff team. We got to go to a baseball game together as a team and sit in a special place on the Thursday night. And then Friday, it was everybody went to a local theme park. It was a great time. But still, like, okay, we're having this fun. They're getting ready for the school year and struggling to make Men After God a priority, with the priority it needed to continue to be. And a lot of it was due to mental exhaustion and not being able to think and prepare and prep and get ready for this the way that I typically would, or making the time to edit. I mean, we had a week in August, I think it was August, Luke, that we didn't put a podcast out. One other time has that happened in the over 2 years that we've been podcasting. And
and I just want to say only one person noticed. So I just want to say that's great. So I'm just kidding. No, appreciate you guys.
This might be our last podcast, but yeah, thank you to that one guy. We really appreciate you. But you know what, we need to talk about that, because that was just kind of one of those things that. So it was during that time. I'm actually having conversations with Sarah, my wife, of, hey, I need to talk to you. I need to make a change, because I've got too much happening. Something's got to give. I can't keep this up. I know that because I've tried it before. And so I began talking to my wife of, I can't keep this up. I'm drained. The kids aren't getting my best. You're not getting my best. I don't even know if I'm getting any of me, in the sense of, time for, you mentioned self-care. I was able to go to the gym every morning, very thankful for that. But of just being able to be human at night when I would get home, and because I would always have a deadline and something going on. And so it was in the last couple months I noticed it. And it was when it came to the point that recording with Luke, and this is what I tell my wife, I said, babe, there's never been a time where recording's been a burden like it is right now. What used to be a blessing and fire me up is becoming like, oh God, I've got to schedule a time to record. Now, what's interesting, and I've never told Luke this before, is my wife knows when I've spent time on the phone or recording or talking with Luke. I walk out of my office, or I come around her with a different spirit about me, because Luke is just that friend that really recharges me. And so I know recording might not be good for me, but hanging out with Luke is always good for me. He's just a great friend. But when having to schedule that, Luke, when having to schedule the recordings and the time to just, again, hang out with you, because that's really what we do. We hang out and we talk about stuff. We record it and tell people, hey, you should listen.
Yeah.
When that became burdensome to think about making happen, that was when I was like, okay, there's something that brings me great joy that is now causing me frustration. Hang on, something's wrong, right? And I'll tell you, I appreciate the emotional intelligence conversation earlier, but it's because there's that point of like, something's wrong. I don't know what. And guys, I'm afraid that many of us feel that. And instead of trying to figure it out, we just like, something's wrong. Yeah, it's fine. We'll figure it out eventually. Let's just keep going. And that is exactly how I would have operated 2 years ago, 3 years ago. That is exactly what I would have done. And I know where it leads. So I had to figure out what was happening. And it was just a little bit of a lot going on. and I needed to figure out where I could step back.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one of the privileges of developing a team, and Dustin's done that. We have, and I want to give a shout out to Daniel Bishop, who has
Oh my
been
gosh, yeah.
publishing and getting stuff done in the background. And we don't really mention him. You don't even know that he exists most of the time, but he's
No.
made it happen. And he is steady Eddie when it comes to this stuff. And there's just certain people. He is the Michael Collins of our team, and most of you don't even know who Michael
Yeah.
Collins is.
I don't, but yeah, he's
Yeah. I actually just learned about it. Michael Collins was, so we know Buzz Aldrin and we know Neil Armstrong because they walked on the moon. Michael Collins was a third astronaut, never walked on the moon. His job was to manage the space shuttle, flew around the dark side, came back and picked up Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin. He didn't get credit. He never walked on the moon, but he was just as much a part of the success as the individuals who walked on the moon. And Daniel Bishop's been that. So when I say that, I just want to say, hey, Daniel's been covering stuff, and Dustin has done a great job doing that. I'm going to come to Dustin in a second, and also Adrian. So Dustin's done a great job putting a team together, people that really love to do this, that kind of have our niche. And so that's where, like, okay, put a team together, then this makes sense. And Dustin, I know you got something to say here.
I do real quick. You mentioned shout out, and I forgot. Men of Valor conference was last month. Fantastic ministry, Men of Valor Ministries. Google them, check them out. Great podcast, great guys. Eric Stewart and all the guys there. We got. I was there last year, loved it. Adrian went this year, did a phenomenal job. Got amazing feedback from the executive team Men of Valor and from the people who've attended. But I was blessed and just encouraged by some men who texted me and said, "Hey, brother, I missed you. Wish you were here this year." Like, that was so nice. And one of them was saying that, and he said, "I hope you're there next year. My boys are bringing a lot, and I turned them onto your podcast." They got 3 podcasts now. Mel Cartel, which again, Nick's, I forget his last name, Nick Carnes, and then Shane Pageant. They're doing that great stuff over there. And then Men of Valor. And then he said, Men After God. I said, thanks. I really appreciate it. And then I said, like, what are their names? I give them a shout out. And I'm so glad you said shout out because I forgot about it. So sorry about that, James. But hey, huge shout out to Spencer and Matthew Baker and James Paul. Really appreciate you boys listening in. Share it with your friends. I hope it's great for them. We're a bunch of old guys. We're middle-aged guys. I said I was old around a teacher today, and she goes, "I think I'm older than you." I go, "Well, have a great day." But no, man, yeah, no, you're right. Look, there's an amazing team around us, and God just brought us together. And Daniel is the one who, man, I wish I was as consistent as that guy. He's amazing. I can't wait for you to hear his story to everyone listening. It's going to be a great time.
We're looking forward to that. We're looking forward to some other voices. And I've referenced that in a podcast I think is coming up on some decision framework. I've mentioned that we've got some really cool voices going to be coming, and then just some cool stuff. Not that we're going to miss Dustin. We're just going to try not to miss him that bad. I'm going to continue the questions, though. We're talking about burnout, talking about self-care, and obviously priorities really is what the conversation is. More about, we're not really talking about burnout because we're not dealing with burnout. We're preventing burnout by looking at priorities. That's really the balance here. It's like, if I can reassess and know what's the most important thing, what am I capable of doing, what should I be doing, and then also the list of what should I not be doing right now in this season, right? We just talked about seasons. Here's another question. Dustin, how hard was it to say out loud, I need to take a step back?
And I had texted the guys, I texted you all last week. And I said, "Hey, we need to get together Sunday night. Can we meet at this time?" And I knew what I needed to talk to you about. And I ended up having a conversation with my wife like 30, 40 minutes before I came up here to talk to you all. And it was about, like, I feel like a failure. I feel like I'm not doing what I can do. I feel like I need to do better. I'm getting ready to, because honestly, Luke, like, that was something you mentioned. You mentioned a little bit earlier about that one guy who said something in the last month, and the first time in 2 years, the thought of maybe it's time for Men After God to end came to my mind. And it was close to that time that guy said something. And then, Luke, you shared with me of a report from a friend of yours that had listened to the podcast and shared it with someone else, just how much of a help it was. And then then yeah, I got the text from the Men After Valor guys who were saying that my boys are listening to it. And I got to preach out at a church here locally and saw a man I hadn't seen in a while. And he said, I'm so glad you're still doing your podcast. Me and my grandson listened to it. And it was in those moments I'm hearing it going, well, just praise God. I'm so glad that it's a blessing to you. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I wanted to shut this thing down. That was weighing on me of like, so that's where, guys, I think that's what leads us to keep going. Everyone's depending on us. Someone needs us. There's truth to that. There's a time for that. Your family is your main priority. And that's the ones I have to look at and say, okay, they need me. And so when I came up here to have the conversation with the guys, I told my wife before I came up, I said, I don't know where I want this conversation to go. I don't know where it's going to go. I just know I don't want to have it, because I felt like I was failing these guys who have given so much to it over these last years. And I felt like I was letting them down. I felt like I was letting people down. And it was when we had that conversation, Luke, that, I almost walked away of wanting to look in a mirror and just tell the guy looking back at me, like, you're such an idiot, because it's 100% true. But I came on that night and, we began talking and I'm sharing with this. And honestly, Luke's, I don't know if you remember this, Luke, but that night before we started talking, you started talking about everything you got going on in life. And it's a busy schedule. It's a lot happening. Adrian just got a new pastorate and is there doing his thing. That's great. Daniel's got some exciting things happening in his life. And I'm sitting here listening, like, every one of these guys are just as busy. Every one of these guys got stuff going on. And I thought in those moments, like, this is not going to work. I'm going to have to shut down for a period of time and we'll start it back up later. Like, we'll do seasons and we'll just have to adapt and kind of figure out what this looks like. And we have churches we work with that we're coaching. And obviously, how do we continue servicing them? There's all these things were going on. And then I began talking to my friends, not my coworkers, not my, fellow executive team, not my fellow leaders. I began talking to my friends. And Daniel, Adrian, and Luke that night were three of the best friends I could have been on here with, as they, really just looked at me and said, Dustin, great idea. Step away. And Luke said it, like, how about 30 days, 3 months, take the rest of the year off and come back January, fully refreshed, ready to roll. Let's get a plan of what it's going to look like and how we do that. And we'll take care of this. And then, you know what they even told me, guys, if you're listening to this, some of the things they told me, they didn't say these words directly, but they said, all that stuff you've been doing, we hate anyway. So we just want to change it. And I'm like, oh, okay, thanks guys. Thanks. Appreciate that.
There's some truth in that. There is 100% some truth. Can we get vulnerable for just a minute? If you listen to the podcast, I'm going to tell my side of the story now, which is the truth, which is going on Justice of the story, which is also true, just flawed perspective. Anyway, I'll be honest, which I normally am. I just normally don't say it that way.
I say it that way. He makes it sound.
Let me anyway. So we do the Monday podcast, which I actually think is a great podcast as well. And I want to say with so many thanks to the pastors that have stepped up, and you got Pastor McBride, Thomas Osterkamp, and then of course
Jenny Sexton, Anthony Stafford.
Many. Who's the other ones? I forget and I apologize.
That's why we shouldn't start naming names. Thank you to all the men who've contributed to our Monday podcast.
Watermelon, just put your name in there, right? So all of that to say, we've had so many people who've supported in this. And to be honest, I did some of the Monday ones and I'm like, I kind of don't like to do these ones. I like to share my heart, and obviously there's a place for that. But verse by verse, which I know there's a biblical concept of expository verse, I think it's great. Do that. And I talked to Dustin. I was like, Dustin, I really think we should go away from Proverbs. And he's like, Luke, I believe in finishing things. We started it. We're going to go all the way through Proverbs. We're going to finish this. And I'm like doing the math. I'm like, that is like 10 years from now. Like, I don't have time for that. Does anyone have time for that? Like, in my mind, I'm like, okay, Dustin, you're the leader. I'm going to follow your vision. I let it go. One conversation. I feel like that was very honorable of me, right? But in my mind, I was like, what if we opened it up? And like, anyway, Dustin's like, no. Anyway, and I appreciate Adrian the other night. He's like, hey, you know what? Are we stuck on Proverbs? I'm like, oh, this is my chance, right? And I had to decipher a little bit to translate what Adrian was asking so Dustin could pick up what we were putting down. And so we actually are wrapping up Proverbs 15. This is an official announcement. We're wrapping up this Monday. We'll wrap that up. And then we are actually going to go away from Proverbs. Pastor Adrian has got some really good content in the life of David, some stuff that we're going to do to lean into a little bit more of some personal application, some personal Bible study he's done, and go a little bit. It's going to be different. So it's not going to be necessarily an interview style like our Friday, like this podcast is. It's going to be some presentation on, hey, so here's a Bible study and some stuff that goes along with it. I'm very excited about that. And so for those of you who've tuned us out on Monday, I'm not saying that anybody really has other than me. Just kidding.
We have amazing download numbers on Monday. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, that's because they're 20 minutes and not 45. We better wrap this up. Just kidding. So that being said, we are going to go away, do something different on Monday. Still going to be Bible study, still going to be personal devotion type related, like, hey, let's talk about some biblical application, but different than a verse by verse. So just so you know, if you like, man, where did Proverbs go? It's still there. You can read Proverbs 16 verse by verse on your own. If you have questions, reach out to Dustin. I'm sure he's got some great content to give you.
Just spend my time away finishing that study out.
Yeah, you do that, right? So just to clarify, we actually, in this process, that release of like, hey, I'm going to take a step back, gave the opportunity for Adrian to step up and say, hey, I'm going to take a step up. Where there's a vacuum in leadership, absolutely. Guys, whenever we watch this happen, where sometimes we'll terminate an employee, a good employee, right? They need to go, or maybe they leave in a work-related thing. And initially there's like, no, so-and-so's gone. Who's going to do what they did? And you can never replace the person and the personality. But what I have found so many times, Dustin, is when when leadership needs to take a step out, and sometimes it's vacation, sometimes it's sabbatical, sometimes it's a new job. What I found in the workplace and in most places is it creates a vacuum effect where people have the opportunity to rise up. And initially in the conversation with Dustin on Sunday, I could tell he was getting ready to say, hey, we need to just take a break and he had a series, and the opportunity for myself, for Adrian, for Daniel, all of us are inspired. Like, no, we got this. We love what Men After God is about because it's encouraged me. Dustin's conversations, encouragement to me, our recording and what we're doing, and the other ones that I'm not a part of, I get to listen to, have been an encouragement to me. And I get the feedback across Facebook and friends and text messages and people that I barely know and people that I know super well that are reaching out to me and saying, this made a difference this week. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for bringing me up. And so with that, gave the opportunity for Adrian to be like, hey, I know I just took a church, but I'm not done with this. I'm more ready than ever before to step up to make up the gap that's current just for this season, because we know Dustin's going to come back in full force and be ready to go and have some more great ideas that we'll have to say no to. It's going to be fantastic.
Be great.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to keep going with the questions. Is that all right? You good? Okay. Here's and we are talking a little bit about burnout, and some of the questions I have, he's already answered, so I'm going to try to go through them. But I want to hear this. There's some psychological data, and I really want to touch base on this for just a minute on the burnout aspect. So most people, there's a concept of like when you get depressed or when you get anxious, there's a concept of like the old school Baptist church ministry, and I have no problem with Baptists. I am a Baptist when I say this, of you just need to talk to Jesus and get over it. You just need to pull yourself up with the bootstraps. You need to put on your big boy pants, whatever terminology that you know of. Hey, you just have to figure this out. I want to talk about the misnomer and the stigma that comes with burnout and depression and some of the stuff that you've experienced. You know what it is. You know it's coming if you don't say no to some things. Let's talk about the research, the stigma, the reality of the fact that burnout does happen, and we got to be mindful of it.
Yeah, burnout's one of those things that it begins by stilling your energy, which results in stilling your joy. And both of those are going to impact those closest to you probably before they actually impact you. Your children and wife will feel the impacts of what you're going through before you even feel. I say feel. You're feeling it, but I'm saying this as a guy who can do this. You're compartmentalizing and or masking, or you're
stifling. Yeah.
You're substituting, you're withdrawing, disassociating. That's the word I'm trying to think of. You're disassociating in some ways where you're not feeling the full effects of what's happening to you, but the people around you can see it. And that's why it's so vital to have a wife who will speak into your life and share, truth with you, to have friends that can look at you and say, hey, are you okay? Like I had somebody look at me the other day. Hey man, what's going on? I'm like, oh man, living the dream. Because you look tired. Well, yep. I didn't know what else to say because I was. And just accepting that I am tired, and it's okay to be tired. Our bodies are made to rest and to get tired and then to rest again. And so that's where burnout starts. It starts with stilling energy. And I think that's it. When you feel the exhaustion coming on and you're having to push through everything, there's a difference between having to push through, a 2 o'clock PowerPoint presentation. That's one thing. But when you're having to push through dinner with family, when you're having to push through game night, when you're having to push through every bit of your work, that's when it's like, okay, something's up here. I really need to kind of figure out what's going on. Now, as far as ministry is concerned, Barna's reported in 2021 that 42% of pastors have considered quitting. And now that was 2021. That was a lot of COVID stuff, a lot of things going on. But why? It was burnout. It was overworking themselves instead of just saying, hey, wait a minute, we're in a completely different season now. And let's go back to COVID. And many of you, if you were in ministry or a part of a ministry, remember those years. That was not normal. That was not anything we were used to, prayerfully never see again. But that type of ministry, that's a different season. You can't keep up the same workload, because you're going to try to keep that load and then add on to the things you needed to do because it's COVID. I need to make more videos. I need to get our church on live stream. I need to make our live stream better. I've got to put this out. I've got to put that blog. I've got to make this trip, all these different things. And I think that as I say that in this moment, when I look back on the different times that I've experienced burnout physically in 2022 and emotionally last year, both times my life was entering a different season, but I didn't compensate for it. I didn't say, hey, I'm in this season where these things are going on. It was, instead of trying to compensate or compensating properly and say, okay, these things are going on in this season, that means I need to remove these things from my life. It was, okay, this is just a season. I'll just add this on to it for this season. And that's the lie every pastor tells themselves, everyone in ministry, and maybe people in the secular world do too. Like, well, it's just a season. It's a season as long as you allow it to be one. All right. Until you make the decision to do something different, it's always going to be that way. You hear ministry comes in waves, and there's truth to that. I mean, there's cycles. I mean, you've got your big three throughout the year: Easter, Vacation Bible School, and Christmas. Those are your standard big three in churches. That's going to be seasonal and stuff. But when your season has lasted 17 months, that's not a season. That's just a bad rhythm of life. And when you put yourself in this state, now I get to get into the fun conversation for me. What your brain does, you get yourself in a state of chronic stress. And this is your brain is flooded with cortisol. This is going to impact your memory. This is going to impact your body and the way that you retain fat. It is going to impair your mood and hurt with your mood regulation. Having dinner with the family the other night, and we were talking about parenting, and he was talking about how when he comes home from work, there's sometimes when his kid is doing something and it's kind of aggravating, but instead of responding well, he loses his emotions and he's getting upset. And then the wife made a comment during the same conversation about trying to control the kid's emotions and things. I'm like, okay, there's a number of things to work out here, but the first thing is recognizing that his emotional dysregulation is coming from your emotional dysregulation, which is oftentimes coming from something that's stressing you out, something that's going on, and it's all because of what's happening in your mind. And if you keep this up over time, the research shows that you will literally shrink your hippocampus and rewire stress pathways in your brain. So you will mess with the physical makeup of your brain if you continue to put yourself under this type of load for a long period of time. When we neglect ourselves holistically, and this is where my book came from, Becoming a Man After God, about a holistic living for Christ. When we neglect ourselves holistically, we're saying ridiculous things such as what Luke alluded to earlier of like, well, you just need to pray more. Okay, well, that is to your spirit, and then we will lift your spirit. There's a great podcast I was just listening to the other day by Andrew Huberman, who was interviewing a guy who studies the impact of religious practices on people and how times of prayer can actually impact your joy and your way that you interact with people and things. But that ultimately, I believe that impacts your spirit primarily. But if you've got something going on in your body, if you've got 75% body fat, like I can tell you, there's something other than prayer you need to be doing. There's some things that you need to be taking care of your body with, and then taking care of your mind, giving yourself that rest, giving yourself that opportunity to not feel the burden of everything that is happening. So the idea of, again, I said earlier, I just pick myself up by my bootstraps. That is me physically. That is me emotionally, not wanting to feel failure, not wanting to feel less than.
Yeah.
They are spiritually going to God. God, make it possible for me to do all this. And there's sometimes I wonder if he doesn't look down and go, no, I didn't make you to do all that. How about you just give something up? So guys, you're juggling a lot in life. And when you get to a place, you're juggling so much that you're unable to best provide and care for those closest to you, your wife and children, your first ministry. You got to make a decision. And I'm thankful. Luke said earlier, he gave me credit for building the team. I know what he means by that. I'm thankful that God allowed us to come together as a team, that I could look at them and say, hey, friends, hey, guys, I need help.
Yeah.
And they were more than willing to step up. And I severely underestimated what they would be willing to do. Not for me. I mean, I know they're friends and they would do it for me if I just asked them as a friend, but it's not just for me. It's for what they believe in and for how they want to serve you and for how they want to share the word of God. They want to share their hearts for God. They want to impact your life because this is what God made us as a team and as individuals to do. And so don't underestimate your friends. They love you. They're there for you, and they will step up in ways you could never imagine when you're willing to have the hard conversation. Not hard for them. It's hard for you. Like it was hard for me to look at my friends and say, guys, and honestly, I felt like I was saying, guys, I can't do this anymore right now. And that hurt.
Yeah, and I know that, man, for the sake of time, we could probably talk about stuff for another 2 hours. I have 2 hours worth of questions, but we're not going to do that today. I'm gonna prep Dustin for two things. I'm going to tell a story, and then I'm going to go back to this. So, Dustin, I'm going to ask you in a moment about scriptures that you've been leaning into as you've prepped for this, knowing that, hey, since Sunday, I want to talk about some Bible passages so we can really align this principle with Scripture as well as this season with Scripture. So that's going to be one. And then I want you to be ready in a moment to talk to the man that's listening who knows he's about to hit a season of that. If he doesn't step on his brakes before he hits the corner, he's going to go off the edge and it's going to be catastrophic. I want to talk to that man. And I also want to talk to the man who's the friend, the person who you're in a season where you're like, man, this smooth sailing, what's about to go wrong? You guys heard a moment ago about some text messages, just some communication that no one knew was necessary, but God used. And I would want to encourage that person, if you've got a friend, check in with your friend that seems like they're doing real well, because most likely they are bleeding in silence and they're not going to reach out. And don't just say, how you doing? They're like, oh, I'm great. Okay, great. Let me know I'm praying for you. No. What are you carrying that's heavy? So I'll talk about that in a minute. I'll tell a story. They did some research a couple years ago on some monkeys. I love research. This one's interesting. They put a monkey in a cage, right? They turned on strobe lights, music that would scare the monkey, shook the cage. They terrified the monkey intentionally. They took the blood levels of that monkey to see, okay, what is the hormone levels, the anxiety levels? Like they wanted to see what did that do to the blood levels of the monkey. And sure enough, it showed up that this monkey was terrified. Obviously that's what they were going for. They didn't change the setting. They didn't take him out of the cage. They did not turn off the strobe lights. They didn't turn off the music. The only thing they did is they opened up the door and they put the monkey's buddy in the pen with him. Same setting, loud music, trying to terrify the monkeys, everything going on. They then took the same monkey, same blood sample, and there was a significant reduction in the stress hormones and the blood levels of the monkey. And you say, what's the moral of this story? First of all, you got to know who your monkey is. So who's your monkey? What I'm really saying is this: you got to know who your buddy is. We don't do this alone. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. By the way, I know we have Jesus. We lean into Jesus, and his yoke is easy and his burden is light. It's still a yoke. It still requires you to do the work, but it's with him. So I just want to give you that encouragement for a lot of you that you're kind of going through it. I had a text. I've got a couple guys right now that have reached out and said, hey, can we talk? I got one yesterday. I got one a couple weeks ago that I'm talking to tomorrow, where they're like, hey, I need some encouragement because I'm discouraged. I'm beat down. I got no answers. There's no good options. And some of it's divorce related and co-parenting. Some of it's just anxiety and mental health and depression. These things are real things. And one of the best things you can do is reach out and say, hey, can I just talk? Not because I have solutions, because I promise I don't have a lot of solutions. What I do have is a listening ear and a heart that cares. And sometimes that's all you need. So Dustin, I'll throw it back to you and talk about real quick the scriptures. Let's talk about the scriptures that you kind of leaned into, that kind of thing to start, and then talk to those two people for me.
Yeah, man. So my pastor has been preaching through Romans, and he was in Romans 8 recently, and Romans 8:1. So now there is no condemnation for those who belong to Jesus Christ. One of the greatest struggles I have dealt with in this last year, and Luke, I don't know if I've said it to you. I'm sure you've picked up on it. If I haven't, I mean, I know we've had many conversations. And guys, I'm going to say this publicly for the first time. One of the struggles I've had in the last year is the question that I think any person who's in ministry or in the pastorate, I think, would face if they step away from that role for any period of time. And it's, what value do I now bring if I'm not that? When I was pastoring, with the conversations of identity and all this stuff would come up, and, conversations of like, no, my identity's not in the pastorate. And I thought that, I believed that. And then when I stepped away from that role, I had to face the reality of, okay, but who am I? And God's worked my heart so well over this last year of seeing, I know I don't have to be a pastor to be in ministry. I've known that, but that is something I struggled with. And then to now come to this place, that was a struggle of, okay, God, this is my conversation with God, just to share it with you. God, you allowed for me to step away from the ministry, and now, God, I'm facing this, like, and you've got me teaching high school. I love teenagers. I love working with teenagers. I think it's amazing. It's phenomenal. I graduated high school, sixth in my class from the bottom. Wasn't my thing. Still, I don't even know. But I'm like, God, what are you doing with my life? I did not get an answer. I'll let you know when I find out. My role right now is to be faithful and obedient. But Romans 8:1, no condemnation for those who belong to Jesus Christ. And I know this passage is talking about our freedom in Christ and from sin and those things. But I also can't condemn myself because I'm not who I think I should be when I'm free to be who God wants me to be. I have to be, but I have to accept it. And that's a process. And maybe some of you guys are out there like, no, I wake up every day and accept exactly who I am and where God has me. You start a podcast and I'll listen to it. But for me, that's a process and kind of a journey of discovery of, okay, who am I in you, and what does this look like for me to serve you with my life in this time and my family? That's one that's been very helpful, because I struggled for a few months over this last year, or at least a month or so, I know, condemning myself of, maybe you're not good enough to pastor. Maybe you're not good enough for ministry or for podcast or, speaking or whatever. I dealt with that. And I had to come to the place to say, God, if you've got to open the door. And it's a place of surrender. That's really what it comes to. The other passage, this stood out to me. Man, this was just last week, and this just hit so more than I wanted it to. I'll just put it that way. Genesis 11, verses 31 and 32. These two verses speak of Abraham's father. And I'm going to butcher these names, but I would call him Terah. It says, one day Terah took his son Abram, his daughters-in-law Sarah, his son Abram's wife, and his grandson Lot, his son Haran's child, and moved away from Ur of the Chaldeans. He headed for the land of Canaan. Abraham's father, or Abraham, was on the journey to Canaan before God called him. His father was taking him there. Now they stopped in this place, Haran, which is the same name of Abraham's brother who had died. I've read Genesis more times than I can probably count, but this never stood out to me the way it did recently. Terah left Ur of the Chaldees to go to Canaan, exactly where God would call Abraham to go. But he stopped here, and that's where he ended up dying. There's no evidence in Scripture that God called Terah to go from Ur of the Chaldeans to Canaan. I had to reckon my God's call and my desire. And what I see in this passage is no call, but movement. And I can be one that decides where I want to go and how I want to get there and begin moving and say, okay, God, you come along. Rather than, hey, God, I'm going to wait for you. That hit me, especially in relation to this and Men After God, because part of the guilt, shame, maybe would be a way to describe it, felt of having to say, hey, I need to step back, was the visions of grandeur, if you will, of what I believe God can grow Men After God into. Should he choose to? Wonderful. We're here for the ride. We're going to do the work and we'll happily strategize and all the stuff that we do. But it's going to be on his timetable, not mine. And I'm going to be okay with that. I'm going to be okay with my pastoral ministry on his timetable and not mine. I'm going to be okay with our podcast. I'm going to be okay with my family. I'm going to be okay with, let's say career, whatever it may be. God bless if he makes me a high school teacher the rest of my life. But I have to be okay. Why? Because I know if that's what God has for me, it's better than if I tried to pursue something I wanted that he didn't call me to. It doesn't feel like it. I want sunshine and beaches. I want a beautiful place to minister with people that love Jesus and like to do crazy things. Like I'm doing a skydive for veterans event this weekend. Pray for me. But I want to do something like that and to raise funds for a charity or for the local church, and want to go and do take over the skate park type stuff or church on the beach. Shout out Thomas Osterkamp again. Just that's an amazing thing. And maybe God has something better for me and I don't realize it. Because I will tell you, in 2 weeks of teaching high school, I'm only 2 weeks in. And there's part of me that wishes I hated it more than I actually do. Because I kind of like it. I would love for that to change, but we'll see what God does.
And I think, guys, I want you to just tune into this. I know we're hitting our max time limit here. By the way, we did the research. It's 42 minutes is the best podcast time. That's the experts say that, because you each have about a 20-minute drive to work and a 20-minute drive.
We're going above and beyond.
We are. So you'll have some for tomorrow too. So you can catch us tomorrow. It's okay. You listen to that through the whole week, 5 minutes a day. All that to say, you're listening to the heart of a visionary who's always looking forward. God, what's next? What can we do? Big vision, daredevil type mindset. Let's go by faith. Dustin lives by faith a lot because he's kind of crazy, right? That's the heart of someone saying, hey, the best way to fight this battle is on my knees and surrender. He's normally the guy that goes and throws on all the armor and charges on the horse. By the way, still wearing the spiritual armor. But in that spiritual armor, he's fighting this battle on his knees in surrender. And I want to encourage you, for those of you that are like, I got to go, go, go. Jesus is saying, no. Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden. Those of you that got some heavy burdens, I will give you rest.
Yeah.
That's not just a suggestion. It's a promise to lean into, guys. So you're hearing the heart of a visionary saying, hey, I've got all this stuff. And the grandeur isn't for personal grandeur. It's just, I want to make an impact for God. I want to throw this out there. Some of you are in a place like, oh, what can I do to make an impact for God? I guarantee that Dustin has already made an impact in his students. And we were talking about before the thing, there's already a little bit of an impact there. And some of the takeaways and some encouraging messages like, hey, we don't get to decide impact. A lot of us look at the big things and the pulpits and the podiums and all that. And yet Billy Graham, him and his buddy got saved because an unnamed usher pulled them into the back of a tent meeting. We don't know the usher's name. We barely know the preacher's name. But an usher saw two boys walk up who thought about coming, but the tent was full. And they went to walk away, and the usher went and said, no, boys, I'll get you seats. They got saved that night and turned the world upside down for Jesus. We don't even know the usher's name. Don't minimize the impact just because you don't see it happening your way. God's way is more beautiful and more satisfying and more fulfilling than anything you can grandeur up in the process.
Oh, man, so good. Let's talk to those last two guys, and I promise I'll keep it short. To the guy you're going through it and potentially entering this season, you're going to have to do something you're not comfortable doing, and that's stopping. and that is surrendering. Before I kept going. I don't learn a lot, but I learned from that. I need to stop. I need to surrender. I need to pause, not on my entire life, but just on part of my life. And it doesn't change who I am. It doesn't change my value. It's just something I got to do right now. And it's okay. I'm still loved by my God. I'm still loved by my wife and my kids and my amazing friends. And Jesus is still on the throne. But I got to say no to some things right now. Hard. And it's uncomfortable. Even sitting here having to talk about this, it's uncomfortable, but I know it's the right thing. So do something uncomfortable. And that doesn't always mean, when I would hear that, I would always think of having to get the introvert to give the speech, right? Sometimes the extrovert needs to shut up.
That's good.
It's still uncomfortable.
Hashtag that. That's going to go on.
Yeah, shut the extrovert up, right? But that's the idea. Uncomfortability is not just in accomplishing something big. It's doing something uncomfortable when it's right. Doing the right thing when it's uncomfortable. Let me say it that way. And sometimes that isn't keep going. It's actually, hey, take a break. And I had a guy say this the day I resigned. He said, Dustin, you've done this, you've done that, you've done this, you've done this and that. He said, leave some kingdom work for the rest of us. And he meant that with such a great heart behind it. That wasn't a knock. It was truly saying to me what I'm saying to myself now. Take a break. It's okay. So I'm going to take a break. And to the friend, guys, I am the absolute worst of just sending a text. Hey, man, praying for you. Hey, hope you're doing well. Hope things are great. But if you believe, if God puts someone on your mind, text them. Just something. And this happened, Luke was a recipient of this just a couple weeks ago. God brought Luke to my mind, and it wasn't just I need to record with Luke. Luke was on my heart, and I'm I need to text Luke. I knew some things were coming up. I didn't know exactly when. But I knew it was around the time. I was I need to text Luke today, and I did. And what he shared with me of what that particular date was for him and things, It was just of God that was sent. I can ignore that more often than I actually yield and send that, because sending text messages for me can be draining. It's just my nature. Now, sending that was more of one that wasn't draining like some can be. But what I'm getting at, reach out, say, hey, if you see something, ask a question. You see something, say something. See something, ask something.
Mm-hmm.
And ask, are you okay, twice? Because then you'll actually get the real answer. I had someone tell me before I had resigned, they sat down with me, they were upset with me saying some things. This person looked at me and said, you did this, and all this, and we don't think this, and we saw that you were struggling. And I'll be honest, maybe in a moment of pride and things of this nature. And I said, so what I just heard you say is that you and these people that are talking to you saw me struggling, but none of you asked me how I was or checked in with my family.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry for what I did, but that hurts. So check in.
Yeah. I think this is gold, guys. This is someone who's speaking from being the receiver, Dustin, and then also for me. I mean, just the season, the day he sent it, I just was carrying something heavy. Anniversaries are heavy, no matter how good you are with dates and grief. This has just been a tough season. Second anniversary of Alicia passing, and some important dates in our life. And there's so much joy in our life. You're like, well, how can I feel bad when I've got so much good going on? And I just want to say this, hey, the good you have in your life, the joy you have, doesn't mean that there's not heavy burdens, right? And so I want you to just lean into this for a second. Obey every impulse of the Holy Spirit. I do not believe God brings people to your mind for no reason. I have a few people in my life, and I don't text a lot of people. I do communicate and connect, but I have a few people that if I wake up in the middle of the night, and there's certain times where I wake up, God always brings those ones to my mind. My pastor, and I'll text. He say, you text your pastor at 2, 3 a.m.? I do. He's a night owl for 1. He might be up 2. I never know what he's dealing with. 3, phones have do not disturb. He's going to get it when he wakes up, when he's ready, and I'm not actually expecting, anticipating, or wanting a response. I want him to know that I prayed for him. Do you know why I want him to know that? Because I prayed for him. I don't just text say, I'm praying for you. No, I literally start praying and I'm like, hey, I'm praying for you. Now, I'm not trying to brag when I say that. Hear me out. It's a very small thing you can do. It is one of the easiest things you can do is to pray for people. The second easiest thing is to reach out and say, I prayed for you. The two of the very easiest things you can do in today's technology and age. And God's bringing people to your mind. Even right now as you're listening, you're like, I've got some people that are coming to your mind. God's putting some people in your mind. Like, I need to reach out and check on them. And it might be a check-in. It might just be, hey, I just want to let you know I'm praying for you. I love you. Some of you, it might be like, hey, by the way, I just want to connect. Some of you are going to reach out to some people that haven't heard from you in a very long time, but God's been putting them on your mind, and it's time for you to build that bridge because you don't know whose burnout you might be a part of preventing or whose life you're going to be protecting. And I'm talking about, we talk about the suicide thing. I'm not talking about like people in that dark place, though possibly that's there. I'm talking about people who are carrying heavy things. You want to know how I know they carry heavy things? Because you're carrying heavy things and Dustin's carrying heavy things. And you're like, well, what I'm carrying, it shouldn't be heavy. I'm sorry. When my little kid starts carrying his backpack to school, which he's supposed to carry to school, it's heavy for him. It wouldn't be heavy for me, but it's heavy for him. You don't get to decide what's heavy for you because what's heavy is heavy. So you say, well, I'm not handling things well. The stress, the anxiety, the work, I don't know that. God does. But also you don't know what other people are carrying, that they make it look easy because they've practiced stifling the fact that they are struggling. And I've been in the place, Dustin, I've been in the place where in my life, I was saying in my marriage and with my kids and with the church and with giving and with work and with everything, I literally would say this line, I have nothing left to give. And when you're there, I promise you, God's saying, hey, this is the opportunity. Can I help? Are you ready for me yet? Are you ready to? Is pride still in the way? Okay, I'll step back. Oh, wait. But he's there ready. Hey, obey every impulse of the Holy Spirit. The impulse of like, hey, by the way, nobody's saying quit ministry. For those of you that want to go to your pastor, like, well, I'm going to stop doing bus ministry in Awana and da-da-da. No, that's not what we're saying. Guys, and execute. Know what you're supposed to do. Know what's required. Know what is going to give you the greatest return, time, value. Like there's that. And then know what's the most rewarding, because the biggest part of burnout is when the joy turns to drain. A lot of times we're not doing the things that refuel us or recharge us. We need to have that conversation. Dustin, take it away. Dismiss us as we go in prayer. Bow your heads, close your eyes. No, just kidding.
Man, Luke, I, again, super just recharged even from this conversation. I'm going to walk downstairs. My wife's going to know, hey, it was a good time, huh? Yeah, it was absolutely a good time. It always is. I'm going to miss it for a bit. Always. We'll be on the phone, though. And guys that are listening, man, I love you. I'm so thankful for you listening to Men After God, taking part in YouTube or Facebook, whatever it is, however you're interacting with us. Just know that, we're a team. I've said a lot before. I hope that, this isn't about me. This is about who we're impacting, what we're doing. And our team's really about to show that over these next few months. And so I'm excited for them, excited for you. And I can't wait to be back in January.
All right. Thank you, guys. You guys have a great day. You will hear some voice on Monday, and then you'll hear us as we go. Please like and share and reach out, connect. If you guys need something, please, I'll let you know. It would be an honor if we can pray with you about something specific. Please Facebook message us, whatever it takes. If you really find, you can look me up and find my cell phone number if you need that. I'm just saying, reach out. I would love to be praying with you about some of the heavy things you're carrying. You matter to us.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Men After God podcast. We hope today's discussion has encouraged and equipped you on your journey. We'd love to hear from you. If you have questions, comments, or would like to partner with us, please reach out at support@menaftergod.net. Stay connected with our community by liking our Facebook page at facebook.com/menaftergodpodcast. For deeper engagement, join our group at facebook.com/groups/menaftergod and connect with other men pursuing God's heart. If you found value in this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. Your feedback helps us reach more men striving to live faithfully. Until next time, stay strong in the faith and continue pursuing after God.